Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Ramapo Town Board. This is our regular meeting on Thursday, September 19th, 2013. And I'd like to ask our town clerk, Christian Sampson, to call the roll.
Councilman Charles? Here. Councilman Deputy Supervisor Withers? Present. Councilman Holman? Here. Councilman Friedman? Here. Deputy Commissioner Hunter? Here. Supervisor St. Juan?
Here. I'd like to ask Brendel Logan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Michael, the first thing we have on the agenda is the public hearings for some of our fire districts.
Yeah,
And-
we have four of them, and after the public hearing, we can vote to approve each contract if that's the board's desire.
Okay.
The first of these is the Johnsontown Road Fire Protection District. We've received affidavits of publication and posting, so all the legal prerequisites are satisfied, and the board should deem the hearing notice in evidence, and we can open up the public hearing.
Okay, the public hearing is open for the Johnsontown Road Fire Protection District. Does anyone like to speak to that? Raise your hand. Motion to close the public hearing by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. And on the main motion, moved by Councilman Ullman, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously.
The second public hearing is on the Ramapo Fire Protection District Number 2. We again have received affidavits of publication and posting, so the legal prerequisites are satisfied. We should deem the hearing notice into evidence for the hearing, and we can open the public hearing up.
Okay. And anyone in the public hearing is now open. Anyone in the public like to speak? Before we close this public hearing, I just wanted to let people know, anybody that may be watching or here in the audience, the Johnsontown Road Fire Protection District is a area that is outside of the village of Sloatsburg. It incorporates about 15 houses, but the Sloatsburg village has their own fire department. So what we do is we contract and then pay the Sloatsburg village to have them cover those homes on Johnsontown Road. And that's the same for the Ramapo Fire Districts 1 and 2 and the Park Crest. They're just, one is in Hilburn, one's Sloatsburg, and the Park Crest is a small area over by Spring Valley. And we then go with Spring Valley on that one. So the motion to close the public hearing by Councilwoman Charles. Did you want to speak, Mr. Dent?
Was it on this issue only, or just to simply speak?
Oh, no, this is on this issue only. We'll have a public participation. As a matter of fact, what we'll do after the public hearings, we'll do public participation so you can speak right away. All right? Motion to close by Councilwoman Charles, second by Deputy Supervisor Withers. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. On the main motion, moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Mr. Klein.
The third public hearing addresses the Ramapo Fire Protection District Number 1. Again, we've received affidavits of publication and posting. The legal prerequisites are thus satisfied, and the hearing notice will be deemed in evidence, and we can open the hearing up for any public comments.
The public hearing is open. Any comments? Motion to close the public hearing by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. On the main motion, moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Mr. Klein.
Yes, and the fourth and final public hearing addresses the Park Crest Fire Protection District. Again, we've received affidavits of publication and posting. The legal prerequisites are therefore satisfied. We will deem the hearing notice into evidence, and we can open the hearing up for any public comment.
Okay. Anyone in the public like to speak on this motion to close the public hearing by Councilman Friedman, second by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. On the main motion, moved by Councilman Friedman, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay. Before we go into the police matters, we will have public participation. So, Mr. Dent, if you want to come up and address us, you have 3 minutes in the public participation to address us. Just state your name and address for the clerk, please.
Rudy Dent, 8 Red Oak Lane, New Hempstead, New York. 17 years here resident. Unfortunately, I've had to resort to cameras and lawyers and all sorts of security options to protect and defend myself, to simply live in the town of Ramapo, where I have stated before, there is and has been a major blockbusting operation complete with the skunk works. There's nothing wrong with Ramapo that couldn't be fixed if the police could police and the code enforcers could enforce the codes. We don't have that in this town, and it's a sad shame. I pray constantly for the success of the FBI investigation, and hopefully some indictments will come down. In the meantime, as far as my own personal issues, I was a policeman for 4 years, and I was a good police officer. I worked in Harlem. I was active. I had numerous arrests and no civilian complaints in a high-crime area. Here we are in the town of Ramapo, or the town of Mayberry, with the highest-paid police chief probably in the state. Why? With 124 officers, as opposed to Commissioner Kelly in New York City, who runs 40,000 police officers and 8 million people in a high-crime area. How do you get those statistics? How do you justify that type of outlay of our money? I support the police as a police officer, but I would like to see the police free to police. Here in this town, they don't seem to have that option. I have witnessed numerous occasions where I've seen the police unable to act, just standing by with a befuddled look on their face when there is a certain crowd present. They don't enforce the law equally. And that is a shame. And I hope that the FBI is following everything. I know in 2007, when we met with the FBI, we were pleasantly surprised to find out that they knew everything we knew, and that they have been on the case for quite some time. And I'd like to see Ramapo be all that it could and should be. As far as being run out or discouraged, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I will stay the course, and I will fight for Ramapo and for the police. And by the way, I've had police officers come to me and thank me for standing up for them, because they would like to enforce the law, but they can't. Their hands are tied in this administration. I have witnessed what...
You can finish your thought.
I have witnessed many officers unable to do their job, and also the chief of police can be easily verified as having served as pretty much nothing more than a public relations damage control representative for the police commissioner and the police and the supervisor. And that is a sad shame.
Thank you, Mr. Dent. Anyone else in the public like to come right up?
It's Robert Romanowski, 183 Maple Avenue, Muncie. I was looking at the website, the Committee for Open Government, and it really pertains to resolutions that the town board is acting upon tonight. It says here that agency records available to the public pursuant to the article of this chapter, as well as any proposed resolution, law, rule, regulation, policy, or amendment thereto that is scheduled to be the subject of discussion by a public body during an open meeting shall be made available to the public, therefore, to the extent practicable and determined by the agency. So, if you go to a village board meeting in the village of Airmont, they have a folder on a table there where you can look through all the resolutions that they're going to be voting on that night. I like to see that here, and also, if they do have some new business resolutions, those are also added to the folder for the public to view, so that way the public can view all of the resolutions that that there's being voted on at that meeting, and I would like to see that done here in the town of Ramapo. And the final thing, since this is probably the last meeting before Christmas, I'd like to wish all the residents of the town of Ramapo a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and also to all the members of the town board and everyone present here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romanowski. Thank you very much. And same to you. Have a great holiday. Anyone else in the public who would like to speak? Motion to close the public participation by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Withers. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is police matters.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor.
Good morning, Chief.
Report. I think you have in front of you some statistics. We have our statistics for October of 12, and we compared them to October of 13, as well as November 12 and November 13. Last month, we didn't have an opportunity to review them, and they're there for you. If you have any questions, nothing has really jumped off the page. We've increased our vehicle and traffic enforcement. We increased the school bus enforcement. We increased our parking enforcement. Some of the crimes have increased. Burglary went up from 7 to 12 from October last year to October this year. Larcenies are up a little bit.
Larcenies went from 46 to 53,
That's correct.
and assaults went from 3 to 12.
12, yes. Yes, sir.
Criminal mischief from 10 to 18.
Yes, sir.
Robberies 0 to 2. Sex crimes went down from 6 to 1, and homicides were 0 in October of last year and 0 this year, in
Correct.
October
That's
of
for
this year.
Comparing the October 12 to October 13. And if you,
And then the uniform, just for people at home, uniform traffic tickets in October of 12, there were 848 issued, and in October of 13, there were 1,039 issued.
that's correct.
And as you've been going after and trying to make school bus driving, and I know that you've had programs of even going to the school bus operators and having classes. If you want, maybe you want to talk about that.
We could talk about that.
But I see that your school bus tickets have gone from 15 to 24, and your cell phone have gone from 34 to 70.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you want to just address what you're doing with the bus?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. We received a couple of complaints throughout the town about school buses either speeding and/or using their horns as a means of getting the children out of the house. So we started a program where we went to the different school bus companies and gave a presentation. We talked about school bus safety, not only speeding, texting, cell phone use. Also, the horn is only be used for an emergency situation. And then we also asked them to let us know if there are any locations that are a lot of cars pass stop school buses, so we could direct our officers to be at that location at that particular time. We're going to we have instituted that program, but every September we're going to be part of the presentation to the different school districts. There's probably at 8 or 9 different bus companies that service the area, both public and parochial schools, and the officers were they part of a presentation that they have, and they were well received, and I think it's going to put a dent in any of our school bus issues. It really do.
Okay, great. I also want to thank the police department for the work on getting the garbage companies to not start picking up the garbage before 6 a.m. We've had a situation, I had some calls from some people in New Hempstead, and I know our police were out there and made it very clear and to the various carters. I won't mention the carters, but because I think it's more than one that have done this in the past, and so the law states that they can't pick up before 6, so.
And the second sheet is your statistics for November of 12, as we compare it to this November. You'll see that, once again, the summons traffic enforcement went up, school bus went up, cell phone went down a little bit. Crimes, burglaries went down appreciably from 12 to 3. Larcenies went down 47 to 40. Assaults are up from 6 to 13. Criminal mischief is up from 4 to 23. Robberies, we had 2 this month. I should say 2 in November. Sex crimes, we had 1 this time last year and 1 also this in November.
And where the incidents on the blotter, the incidents on the blotter, Chief, went from, 2,607 to 3,894. So that's just people calling up and on any issue, correct?
That's correct.
And with our new track system, things are working well with the new,
The impact
The
system
impact.
that the town purchased, it is working well. We've have a couple of wrinkles that are being ironed out, but it's much better user-friendly than the old system was, and the retrieval of data is a click away. So it works very well.
what I think is great is that with the new impact system is that when a case or even from the very first call, whether it's 911 or just someone calling in, immediately attaches any other events that happen around that directly to that number, so that if our detectives need to retrieve something, it's all right there at their fingertips and they don't have to search through records.
Correct. It's like a magnet. Everything is drawn right into a central file.
They also are able to do it out in the field, a photo array, if they need to, in
In the squad car.
a split second if they need to, and it attaches the files right to it, where before they had to come in and look at the file, and it's a very good tool for the police department if found it for purchasing it.
Well, the town made this decision to go to the impact, and I think now other towns and even the county are looking at it, Chief.
They are.
Because it's just a much better tool with
Yes.
using cyber technology. And okay, any other questions on these incidences here on these 2 reports? Okay, Chief.
Just want to keep the board apprised of some of the village boards I attended the last couple of months. I went to the Hillburn Village meeting last month. They're very happy with our performance. Spoke to the mayor there. They had about 18 folks at the meeting, and they're extremely happy about our performance. They have no complaints whatsoever. I was up there again for the Hillburn tree lighting. They must have had 75 to 100 people there, and it was a very nice event. And we had some traffic control there, and once again, they made a point of coming over, speaking to me, and telling me how pleased they are with the officers that we assigned to that village and our overall performance. Went to Sloatsburg Veterans Recognition Evening, where they recognize the veterans that primarily live in Sloatsburg, and again, it was well attended, probably about 100 people there. And I had an opportunity to speak to the mayor, and he echoed very similar comments as Mayor Flanagan did. Very happy with our performance, no issues. They requested some extra services for the holidays, which we have done and will continue to do. So they're very satisfied with what we've done for them.
And they did have some events that took place there. I know we had our anti-crime unit there and some undercover in Sloatsburg.
We had a couple of burglaries there, and we made an arrest. I think we had 3 or 4 burglaries, and we sent, just as you mentioned, our anti-crime team, our detectives up there, and we made an arrest, and we feel that very comfortable to tell you that one individual was the cause of the 3 or 4 other burglaries, and they have all stopped since we arrested this party. Went to Spring Hill Ambulance, and Mr. Supervisor, it gets to be old hat. They're very happy with the police officers that they encounter on the road. They're very cooperative with them. They lend a hand, and when the ambulance comes, it's a team. It's truly, when you talk about first responders, it's the police department, it's the ambulances, it's the fire. It works very well. And I talk to them because I don't meet them very often, so I really want to know where the rubber meets the road, where the police officers come in contact with the members of the fire department and the ambulance corps, and they're very happy with them. They don't have a complaint in the world about how we perform.
I did a ride-along with the Spring Hill, a midnight shift with Spring Hill Ambulance Chief, and you just can't believe how busy they are, and they interact, obviously, with other police departments, because they cover the Hill and Spring Valley, so we interacted with Spring Valley Police as well. But the Spring Hill Ambulance Corps alone, one of our 6 ambulance corps in the town, does over 6,000 calls a year. It's almost a call every hour, 24/7. So they're very busy. I almost got a stork pin myself. We almost had a delivery, but we were able to get to Nyack Hospital for that delivery. But they do incredible work, and they are so professional. And a lot of times they become the almost the doctors to people in the town that have no other insurance. So we'll see how Obamacare comes in and how that affects that as well, as far as people getting that proper care.
We also went to a dinner in the New Square. Councilman Freeman was there. It's, maybe he can help you with the pronunciation for the Havarium. Am I saying it wrong?
Havarium?
Not Havarium.
A raven. That was a raven.
A raven. Am I saying it correctly now? Yeah. It's well attended. We were up in the Charter, and the place was full, and it's
And they work with kids at risk.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's a very nice evening, well attended, and again, we get compliments on how our officers are working with their organization.
I got some compliments too, Chief.
Me? You got compliments? I said you were looking good. He's always the most dapper guy in the place.
Okay, Chief.
Okay, next one is our canine update. I want to advise the board, we are actively searching for a replacement for the canine program. Andre Sanchez is looking into a school. He's narrowed it down to the Yonkers PD, which will start around March, so I'm going to write a letter asking them to save a spot for him. It will be probably an 18-week school, and again, he's looking, we had a couple of options with some canines, but they didn't pan out, and at your direction, we're going to have a canine for 10, 12 years. We're going to get the best that we can get out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And just to know, to let the board know that our canine, Shay, who retired a few years ago, passed away a few days ago. I spoke to Katie Franklin, who became then their family dog after his service here. And so Shay was a great dog, and we've had great success. And it was unfortunate that our last canine died at such a young age. And,
Yes.
But I'm glad that you're moving forward with getting the schooling and the possibilities of a new dog.
Yes. I really leave it up to Officer Sanchez. He went to Orange County Sheriff's Department for the first training, and I let him make the decision where he would like to go again. I think he's going to go with the Yonkers, as I mentioned, and all we have to do is write a letter, and we'll reserve a spot for him. The two other issues...
I would note,
I'm
Chief,
sorry.
I just want to make one other. When we had a ceremony here for our canine, do you remember how many
there
units
must've been
came from
20,
all over the metropolitan area?
25
And Yonkers was
canine
here.
handlers.
And Yonkers was here for that as well.
They were.
They lined the
Right.
room.
They were.
Yep.
I'd say 20, 25 handlers. It's a...
Close-knit.
Community.
Yep.
Yes. The next two issues are our police officer vacancies and our dispatcher vacancies, and perhaps we can discuss that in executive session.
Okay.
If appropriate.
Personnel would be appropriate for that. Yep.
Thank you. Then we have a request for tuition reimbursement for an Officer Caro. He's going for his master's degree, and I'd like to discuss that in depth at the executive session.
Well, that's actually a part of a contract, so that's appropriate
Okay.
as to what we pay for training and what we don't pay. It's part of, as stated in the contract.
And then,
Officer Carroll was the person that was hurt. He blew out his knee at
Yes.
the basketball at Spring Valley, and
Correct.
he's back though, and he's
Yes.
okay.
For initiating our PAL program,
Yeah.
for the youth that have nowhere to go.
Yep.
Then again, my contract's expiring the end of this month, so I'd like to discuss that at the board executive session as well. And that's really what I have, other than issues in executive session, so I don't know if you have any discussion.
Is Lieutenant Holmes here for an executive session item?
No, sir.
No?
Here, in case you have any questions.
Okay.
As you are aware, he's spearheading our EEOC, the Emergency Operations Center, and it's going along a little slowly, but I think we're going to have a state-of-the-art center once we get done with it. We have all new equipment, all the latest equipment, and we probably a good time to thank the board for that. Incidentally, we're trying to get some funding for that from our asset forfeiture. So I'm a little hesitant to talk about it because it's not going to be here. I'd like to see the dollar in my hand before I tell you can have it. But we are working on that, and if it comes through, I think we'll appreciate the amount of money we're going to get.
Okay. Well, before, go ahead, Lieutenant.
Okay.
Okay. I think, Chief, before we go into executive session for police items, we'll finish off the agenda here with the
Sure.
public here, so they can...
Yes, sir.
The next item on the agenda is the year-end budget resolution. Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. The next is the transfer of the funds for the police budget. Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Item number 3 is purchasing. It's extension of the agreement for dry cleaning and laundering of police uniforms for New Trend Cleaners. Moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Item number 4, Department of Public Works, the discussion of some home grinder pumps. So Mike Sadowski, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good morning, everybody. Sent regrets from Ted. Unfortunately, here is back this morning, so we asked me to pitch in for him at this morning's meeting. With regard to the home grinder pumps, the sewer department maintains about 70 to 75 home grinder pumps located throughout the town. We have about 5 or 6 that are currently causing us some problems. Some of you may or may not know the handy weights that the companies are making now are stronger than they've ever been before. And when you're in a home grinder pump situation, they jam up in the pumps. And once it cycles, if you have a rag that's kind of half caught, then when it cycles again a second time, there's not enough torque and the pump seizes up and it burns out and causes problems. Years ago, we sent letters out to all of our home grinder pumps, basically telling the residents, try to keep these things out of the waste stream because they're difficult with, they don't operate well with these pumps. Some people have complied, others have not. We're finding ourselves, sewer departments finding themselves going to the same pump stations time and time again, oftentimes on overtime, to treat the same problem. We've sent specific letters to the residents, and they still, it's not me. Well, that has to be somebody from your household because
It's your pump. It's only your... Yep.
There's only one house that ties into that pump. Sometimes they blame the cleaning lady, the guests from out of town, but it's coming from their house. So we're just looking for some direction from the board as to how you want to handle this. I mean, whether it's,
Let me just say to the board that when I met with Mike and Ted, and we were discussing this, I thought that maybe we should put a policy, and that's why I wanted you to come today and talk to the board, that you can maybe, you get a couple free shots at making a mistake, but if people, the same people are doing the same thing over and over again, and it's costing the taxpayer money to, especially if it happens on a weekend and then it's overtime, that we should have maybe a policy that after 1, 2, 3 times, the board can talk about this. We don't have to decide today, but we could get some recommendations from you, that after so many times, if it's the same people that are doing this, then they should be paying for that, our workers to come out there. And we can have, Nat can work up what the cost would be for the hourly cost for our employees and the time and driving the truck there and the gasoline, and add it all in and make the homeowners pay for that.
I'm just curious, Mr. Supervisor, why are we supplying home grinder pumps?
Well, what happens is that in our system, in our sewer system throughout the town, there are certain areas where they can't get to the force main because of the terrain or the topography, and it's more cost-effective to put in the grinder pumps. We always try to go for gravity flow where we can, but there are times where it just can't be done. So it's a pump that then pumps it directly into a force main. So we also have an incredible program Mike has put together, and we utilize it in other sewer districts in the county on teaching people about grease and having grease-free sewers and what that does. What kind of a recommendation? Do you want any more time, or what are you thinking, Michael?
I mean, we had some ideas, but I know Ted was thinking I was basically sending everybody a letter, sending all 70 of them a letter, explaining again about these wipes that are advertised as flushable, but they're really not, and asking them to refrain from putting these items, flushing them down the toilet, and then also possibly saying that, you know, maybe give them one free maintenance visit in a 12-month period of time, and if the town has to come back a second time, maybe bill them for the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the ideas that we were throwing out.
Is that with disposable wipes or with grease? I mean, being former restaurant owner, the grease traps are a big issue. Is that also finding its ways into the sewers?
Yes, we do
Because
see
there's a lot of
varying,
restaurants
we do
are-
see varying amounts of cooking grease.
There's a lot of restaurants that don't comply with that. You can work alongside with the Board of Health and say, can you please maybe start looking for that in your inspections?
Well, the grease that we're talking about that would be going into these home grinder pumps are only generated by the one household. There's a larger grease program where we work with the sewer district, where we go to restaurants and service stations and basically work with them to make sure that grease traps are, and these are the larger 1,000-gallon grease traps, that they're properly cleaned out and installed by the applicants, again, non-residential applicants. So there's a larger one, but we're talking about right now these home grinders, and we do have varying
It
amounts.
is a national, I don't know if people are aware, but it is a national issue going on. You being the vice chair of the sewer district, is these wipes are causing a problem.
Absolutely. They cause problems in even some of our bigger pump stations in the county.
It's a countrywide phenomenon now. We're talking to pump manufacturers, and they're scratching their heads because it's just, these wipes are so strong. They're not breaking down like toilet paper's designed.
Yeah.
Do you think that one should be a notification, a second one a warning, and a third one we hit them with the full price? Do you think? I mean, we want to work with people and educate them to not do this.
The ones that are cited in the letters have already gotten a warning, and we've asked them to stop it, that this is, you know, it's impacting them too.
Sure, they could get backups.
Right, and so everybody that's on that list has gotten something from us already, but it's up to you if you want to give them, you know, 3 strikes you're out, or give them 1 freebie and the next one charge them. I mean, we'll do whatever the board.
All right, well, we'll talk about that as to what we think is the right way to go. Are there check valves in these grinder pumps when they're installed? They're all installed, so if it does fail, there's a check valve that stops it from then filling up the house.
Yeah, the check valve prevents the force main from draining back.
The force main from coming back in, but it wouldn't stop if they kept using the toilets and there was a blockage and their grinder pump wasn't working. Eventually, then it would back into the house. But we're not acceptable to the force main coming in where we'd have incurred big damages.
Stop the force main if the pump's not.
All the grinder pumps are that way?
So,
You know, I just want to reiterate one thing. When Montebello built the Montebello Commons, they didn't, their engineers did not look at the proper gradient and the gravity flow. And so we have a situation there where people have been notified that they need to put in check valves in some areas, and they still haven't. I just wanted to make people aware of that.
Too late to go after the builder through the town attorney to
and that was Village of Montebello, so yes, we have no recourse against the builder.
Yeah. So we want to make people aware of check valves too as we go through this. But all of those 70 grinder pump people have check valves.
It's part of the manufacturer.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Supervisor, what I was going to suggest is that the board may want to adopt a form of policy regarding these areas where there are problems with the grinder pumps. it should specify exactly what types of materials would be prohibited from being, entering the sewage flow, and then it would be a notice requirement, and then the board by resolution can indicate that part of that policy would be that they are then responsible for the cost of repair.
Why don't you want to start working on that formal policy with the DPW? And I think we should give people, they get one free maintenance, one warning, and then we probably should go after them. How's that sound?
That's good. Do they have active, could the residents go to the pump themselves?
They're not supposed to, the lids are bolted down.
But what I'm afraid of is that if we start charging them, I don't want them, they don't want to pay, they're gonna go down and start tampering with the pump themselves, and then cause more damage.
They're not, I mean, it's our property, it's our pump. They have no right to basically tamper with our equipment.
I know you spoke to me about this a year ago, you're having specifically in one area, you're having a lot of problems with 2 or 3 homeowners there. Kept them going back on almost a monthly basis, so.
Do you put in the letter that they're not to be tampering with the pump? That they shouldn't be going down there and opening it up and trying?
We don't put that in the letter, the letter's more geared towards stop flushing these
Yeah.
things down your toilet. But when we, when we get them to sign the consent of entry, it's, like, this is the property of the units, the towns, and this is what you're responsible for.
Maybe in the formal policy, we should have a section in there as to access and that they shouldn't be going in there. You know,
The panel has a lock, has a padlock, so they can't get into the electrical panel. The tank usually is just, over the years they've changed the way they build them, but most of them are just bolted down, so technically you could take off.
you know, we've just so you know, we've had situations where we've had to lock down manhole covers because we had a situation in Airmont along Cherry Lane where people were opening up the manholes and throwing material in there in order to cause a blockage. And it's kind of environmental terrorism is what it really is. And so we've, on the county,
Snap, take a picture of it, that it's overflowing, I remember that.
yeah, and so what we've done in the county is we've put locking manhole covers on there in some of those areas that are most vulnerable.
I have a question. Several years ago, I was a former sewer commissioner, and I'm not sure if we should approach this countywide. We talked about it being state to state, that this problem is, throughout the country. What do we do preventively to tell the residents, just not these few that have a problem, but everyone, no one should be putting any kind of grease or any kind of wipes? Do we send out anything?
Yeah, we do, and the county does, and the sewer district one, the Ramapo system and the Clarkstown systems, the town systems, flow into the main interceptors of the county
Right.
sewer system. So on the county level, we have Joan Roth, who goes out for the businesses along with Mike, and when we have problems, especially with grease and grease traps. And then we do send letters out and have a whole education program, letting people know what they can and shouldn't put in, even besides just grinder pumping. I mean, everybody,
Everything, right.
especially for the grease.
When's the last time that went out from the town, from the town to the town residents? Do you remember?
I don't recall, the last thing we sent out was probably grease related.
Okay.
You had a pamphlet, I remember, that you
Yeah,
sent out.
we still do. Actually, a couple of years ago with our AmeriCorps, we modified it. We have a nice little, a real good visual with what hardened grease looks like in a pipe.
I
Just,
have
pictures
that
with 1,000
visual.
words, you look at that and you think, whoa,
Right.
that's.
I think what we should do is maybe send out something, this new year, and try to start off everybody on the right foot, send out something to all the residents, and then, of course, try to address these residents who are really not getting the message. 'Cause I don't want them to feel like we're singling them out, but at the same time, we need to educate everyone. So that might be something you and I can work on if you want to, because we do a lot of public service.
Absolutely, and Michael is really the public service person and really is running the consortium for stormwater for the whole county. So in your report that you give to this town board every year, you give a report on what work is being done for the storm system, which is a separate system, but I remember you bringing in and talking about the grease program. I have a sewer district meeting tonight at the legislature at 6 o'clock, and so I'll bring it up again to your point about sending out more information and maybe talking with the county of any formal policy. I don't know if we have a formal policy in the county either, but we should for the very same thing. Okay, and you're up again, Michael, for the discussion on the Ramapo River Trail.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Again, there's two main issues. I believe council members have money that they had appropriated for us, the federal money, was in the fiscal year 2014. We have to kind of pick a target date, or I'm recommending that we pick a target date for when we want to really construct the trail. The DOT's asking because if we're not going to be ready to construct the trail in 2014, they want to reprogram the money to another project that is ready. And conversely, when we are ready, they rent from somebody else to make sure that we have.
Time out.
I know it doesn't sound
No, time out. This was T21 money we got from the federal government 8 years ago. Actually was a grant, maybe even a little longer. It was a grant that came to the county of Rockland. The county of Rockland said they didn't want to put a river trail in along the Ramapo River, so we took over that grant. I think it was close to $700, $600 and some $1,000. We haven't received a dime of it. We then had to go through all the acquisitions of the properties. We had to do all the engineering. There was our engineers our consultants that came in. Do you remember the board that they showed? It looked like a maze of different agencies we had to go through. We've gone through all of those agencies, even to the point, just so the board knows, this connects the Suffern train station to Hilburn, and then goes up to, eventually we'll go to Sloatsburg. It gives the ability for people to walk along the river. It gives people to go to the train station, which is why we're able to get it as a T21 money, as transportation, alternative means of transportation. We had an issue with the New York State Thruway Authority where they wanted to charge us $10,000 a year to have a little section along the river that was on Thruway right-of-way. We've since they have come to their senses and meeting with the head of the Thruway Authority, we've gotten it so they now are waiving that fee that we have to pay. We've had to deal, since this is in the Ramapo Gap, we've had to deal with the Norfolk Southern, with all the pipelines, and had to even acquire some property from Norfolk Southern as well. So we've been doing all of that. You and Tom Sullivan, who's here, it's been a tremendous amount of work. The last thing we want to do is, as we're getting close to starting or them allowing us to put a shovel in the ground, is to say, no, let that money go somewhere else. Because if it goes somewhere else in the federal system, we will not get it back. They can tell us we'll get it back, but we won't. We had money. We had money for the siphon project in Suffern that we put together, that we started, and we had about $180,000, and they reprogrammed that to the Mississippi River during the problems they had there, and you'd have to start all over again. So after doing all of this and all the money outlays that we've put out, some of that should be reimbursed by the money, federal money, to have that disappear now wouldn't make sense. So we should give them a start date as to when we anticipate to start in spring of 14. What is your feeling on that?
Well, first, we have gotten some of the federal money. The project that the county asked for was like $667,000. Of that, I believe it was like $534 was to be funded from this program. We have already spent about $140,000 for engineering fees, leaving us a remaining outstanding balance of about $400,000 that's still that's been reprogrammed to just the construction phase. So we have spent some of that money. We had spoken about the different dates, and the dates that they were asking for were not necessarily the construction date, but the dates that we would have to know prior to that, such as the 90% complete contract documents, something called PS&E submittal, and the final right-of-way acquisition of documents. And that's probably one of the first things that if we want to start, if the answer is we want to get going as soon as possible, then the attorney's office and Tom Sullivan really have to get going, finishing off the property acquisitions. I know we're probably up ahead with the Thruway Authority. I think we got a good handle on that one, but some of the other, and Tom, jump in if I'm saying something wrong here, some of the other negotiations are kind of preliminary in nature and have to go before certain boards and whatnot. So if the answer is, again, we want to get going as soon as possible, then we really have to kind of step up the timetable and not getting those
Which means also we have to budget for the acquisition of the property. If we're buying the property from those landowners, the board has to commit to basically spend the money.
And that's gonna be only a portion of the construction cost, which will even be higher. And let me just talk about phase two, or not, I don't wanna call phase two, but the second part that I wanted to mention. Our consultants, Hudson Valley Engineering Associates, had some discussions with the DOT, and they're floating some ideas about modified parameters of the trail and shortening it up in a couple spots. And if you're willing to hear it, I'll go over what they're
Yeah,
talking about.
And that might be beneficial because, remember, we're still footing a good portion of the overall cost.
right.
They're only reimbursing us a piece of it. So if the trail gets shortened, it reduces the cost, that also reduces what we have to allocate.
Okay.
So here's a flash from the past. We did this years ago, and we selected alternative 3. Just to kind of orient yourself, the state line is here, train station is
To your right, yep.
around here, here's the ball fields, 4th Street, Hilburn, and the current terminus of the project, which is up here on 59.
Route 59.
So one of the suggestions or one of the discussions was to make the northern terminus of the project 4th Street, right here. That would eliminate the property acquisition from, it says Morant here, but I think it's Southern Energy, and then also, I believe, the United Water property up here. And this pedestrian bridge which crosses the Ramapo River. It reduces the construction-related cost estimate, which they have now, of $3 million, and cuts it down. We take this piece off, their estimate is like $1.6 million down to here.
You know, just for the board, the United Water is not so happy with the town of Ramapo. We've been fighting the desal plant and since 2009, and they haven't been so quick to talk with us about going across their property there. And the other is Morant, or now Southern. Our goal was to be able to let the people in Hilburn get to the train station or ride their bike or be able to go along the river, and there's all sorts of areas you can fish and you can, sit and enjoy the Ramapo River. So I think it would make sense if we save $1.6 million and probably be able to make the project doable, is to just eliminate that portion going up to 59.
Mr. Supervisor, also, remember, we also talked about a second phase of the project that would extend up to
To
Sloatsburg.
Sloatsburg.
One issue with this project, the DOT specifications require us to have a paved surface of a certain width, and that adds tremendously to the cost. We had discussed the second phase of the project being a little less ambitious and maybe not being a completely paved surface the whole way and maybe it's smaller in diameter. So if we shorten the project on phase 1 and we do continue on the second phase of the project, we may not have to meet the same specifications that DOT is requiring, and therefore would dramatically decrease the cost, but would still provide at least walking and maybe bike trails for people, although a little bit less ambitious than the DOT is requiring.
So
Right.
that's one, again, this would be 1.6 from 4th Street south. And then the other thing that could be done, I suppose, is if we decide that this is going to be under this type of project, I don't know whether we still want to work on getting the right-of-ways for the future or not, because we still need to get it done, whether...
Yeah, I think we could. I think we should concentrate on going to 4th Street in Hilburn and connecting Hilburn. We still are going to, because that the down at the lower portion there, Michael, we still are going to try to connect to the Oakland Mawa Trail,
Well,
correct?
that was the second suggestion that was discussed between our consultants and the DOT.
Because that included buying an old bridge from Norfolk Southern, correct?
Well, that would still be part of it, because we
Okay.
have to get over the river to get to the train station.
Mhm.
So that truss bridge still needs new decking, and still needs to be redone. What the DOT apparently is floating is, let's end it at the train station, and don't put in this piece, because there's no trail in New Jersey that is constructed yet.
What kind of a savings is that if we
I think
connect?
it goes down to like 1.3 million. And that's not right-of-way acquisition, that's Hudson Valley's projected construction-related costs.
So even if we wanted to eventually connect that portion of the trail, the southern portion by New Jersey, we could always do that, as council said, in a different way, more of a nature walk versus having this, I think it's a 12-foot wide pavement, isn't it? That what they, federal government requires?
This would be easier to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this would be an easy piece
Yeah.
to do afterwards.
So why don't we, our original goal was connect Hilburn to the Suffern train station, so why don't we focus in on that and eliminate the southern portion and the northern portion of the project, and I think that will make it easier for acquisition and probably on a time frame.
But the town's contribution, even if the scope gets reduced to, let's say, $1.6 million, we're still going to have to come up with about $1 million from whatever sources to do our committed.
Right, the money that we're getting from the program is still the same, so whatever the balance is, and it's gonna be the lion's share,
Yeah.
it's still gonna be.
How does reimbursement work? We have to first complete it and they reimburse us, or they give us towards the cost up front?
I think we have to, the way the engineering costs were, we pay it out and then they reimburse us.
We have to do the whole job? We start half the job and?
Well, that's what they're saying, they basically truncated the job, they're suggesting cut the top off, cut the bottom off, we still got a logical terminus here at the train station and a logical terminus here at 4th Street, so they're saying, take that out, and consider.
In other words, could we do a $500,000 worth of work instead of the whole job out front? So we don't lose the
I
grant?
think they have that 90% completion before they start funding us,
I'm
but,
gonna say no to that, because
but it's, yeah.
one thing they keep spitting out is it needs to have a logical terminus, it needs to have a logical terminus. They weren't even happy with this.
If the DOT is saying that they would prefer us to truncate it, we're better off going with that,
That's what
rather
it sounds like. They
than
think the
fighting them.
viability of it and the constructability increases if we shorten up, because
Yep.
they know how much money they gave us, they know how much these
Yep.
estimates are coming in at, and I think they think that we got a better shot at doing it if we kind of shorten
Okay.
it up a little bit.
So Mike, if we say that it's our intent to start construction, let's say in the fall of 2014, we still have to budget our share somehow during the 2014.
If that's what we're saying, then I'll put the dates in, but then, you're still gonna need to fund
To
the
find a
construction
funding
and fund-
source.
And fund the right way.
Right.
I mean, we don't even know how much, I mean, you'll probably save, I would think, because
Could-
now you
could you-
don't need Southern Energy anymore. Now, Tom can focus on.
Could we do this, Michael? Could you,
down there.
could you set it up for a meeting in January? Not the reorg, but maybe later in January, to have me and Nadansky come in, and you and Tom, and we can talk about the truncated and what it is and where we are, and we can talk about funding sources as well.
When do we have to give them an indication about dates?
As soon as possible.
Why don't you tell them that we met with the board, and the board agrees with the DOT on a truncated version of the plan, and we're going to have a meeting in January. We can invite them to the meeting as well, to go over all the specifics, and so that we can be looking for a start in fall of 14.
Okay, I'll put, all right.
And see what
All
kind
all
of,
14
at
on
least that way you're getting some communication with the DOT, and,
Okay.
all right. Any other questions?
Sullivan, any comments on this, or?
We will finish off the acquisitions. But, once the offers are made, you have like 90 days to close, I mean, different time clocks.
You like the idea of the truncated version, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes it more workable on the acquisition side as well. Okay.
Like you said, the acquisitions are difficult because of the players. O&R, the railroad.
Yep.
The railroad's gonna be probably the most difficult one, because like Tom was saying, they have to go to boards and get railroad board approval, that could be time-consuming.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Town clerk, we have appointment of a marriage officers for the town of Ramapo for 2014. Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Did we have any new business, Michael?
We received a check based on a litigation that the New York State Attorney General's office conducted against a California company, and the terms of that settlement were that they be shared with different municipalities, so we're receiving a check in the sum of $3,720.71. And we have a resolution for that.
Okay. Moved by? It's moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. The resolution itself, or? Michael, did we go? You didn't get me a copy? You will? Thanks. Yeah, in a minute. Milk, no sugar.
And then lastly, I believe,
What was the total amount on that? What was the amount on that, Michael?
$3,700.
Strange, commas in the wrong place. Is this 32,000 or is it 3,000?
3,000.
It says 3,2701.00.
Okay, moved by Councilwoman Charles, second by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. We had a resignation of a zoning board member, Toinette Earl. I'd like to accept her resignation. Moved by Ullman, seconded by Withers. We have a replacement for her, Alan Palmer. Moved by Withers, seconded by Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed. We also have a vacancy, and Mr. Shapiro never was sworn in on the zoning board, so we'd like to move Mr. Lefkowitz from an alternate up to Mr. Shapiro's position. Moved by Councilman Ullman, second by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Do we have any other, we wanted to add the safety committee to the ambulance. We need to do that now?
We can do that.
We never designated who was our liaison, so I thought we'd just make the safety committee, emergency safety committee that we already have as the liaison to the ambulance corps.
That's fine.
All right, moved by Councilman Ullman, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye.
And we do need to
Opposed,
schedule-
carries unanimously.
I'm sorry. We do
And
need to schedule a meeting for adoption of tax rates.
we get the adoption rates from the county hopefully shortly. Why don't we make it Tuesday morning, Christmas Eve, Tuesday, December 24th at 9 a.m. In my office, it'll be a quick meeting on the adoption of the rates. Hopefully, the county should have it to us by then, correct? Okay. So that will give us enough time. So motion to have a meeting on Tuesday, December 24th at 9 a.m., moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, seconded by Councilwoman Charles. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. Did you have any other new business?
No, just the executive session.
All right, a motion to go into executive session for personnel and contract, moved by Councilwoman Charles, seconded by Councilman Ullman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. So we're in executive session. Carries unanimously. You ready, Jack? Okay, we're out of executive session. And we have two items that came up. One is training for our police officers. We had previously had a resolution paying for them to receive some TASER training. That date was canceled and was rescheduled for March, so we'll have a new resolution to send our officer Anton to training, TASER training. Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilwoman Logan. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. The other item was a memorializing resolution to be sent to the governor in support of the governor's signing the Bergen-Rockland Tri-State Partnership for the Hackensack River. And that's moved by Councilman Friedman, second by Deputy Supervisor Withers. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. And a motion to adjourn. Moved by Deputy Supervisor Withers, second by Councilman Friedman. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.